Neuvillette just dropped, so let's look at a bunch of teams for him. Quick disclaimer, obviously some teams are better than others, but we're trying to make some different ones that function against most content rather than regurgitate the same few teams that everyone already knows about. On this channel, I'd rather give you 8 teams that you can pick your favourites from, rather than just give you 4 teams and call it a day. The first team is this Taser team. It's always nice to play Beidou, given the fact she's one of my favourite characters, but it's also cool that Neuvillette's a dragon, and Beidou slices dragons up to eat in stir fries. Beidou also gives a shield at C1, so along with Neuvillette's self-healing, you could drop Zhongli and play someone else. He just gives more comfort and resistance shred. Throw a Favonius Lance on him and he'll give your characters some much needed energy too. An alternative to that team would be one where you swap out an Electro character for Albedo. Fischl will be less reliant on energy, so I've chose her, but if you can keep uptime on Beidou's burst, she's gonna give you more damage. Albedo's another character that doesn't get too much play given the fact that most teams always have a better option, but he synergizes well with this team. Neuvillette does charge attacks, so he's not going to work with characters that deal damage triggered by normal attacks like C0 Neuvillette. Having a character like Albedo that deals damage without that requirement benefits Neuvillette. Also, having 2 Geo characters gives you Geo resonance to increase shield strength, which prevents him getting interrupted, as well as increasing the team's damage by 15%. You could even drop Zhongli to put Beidou back in and rely on Beidou's shield and the crystallized shields. Definitely one to play around with. I found this Hyper Bloom team to be one of his strongest teams. I went with full elemental mastery on Raiden. Baizhu has Favonius Codex to give the team more energy, and you can even use Raiden's burst every now and then to charge bursts up a little if you want. As a big fan of Baizhu, I try and use him everywhere, but he has genuine synergy with Neuvillette because he gives comfort with his resistance to interruption, and his burst healing can work in intervals, making it easier to trigger the Marechaussee Hunter 4-piece. There's a lot of damage in this team too, with there being 3 different damage dealers. Neuvillette and Nahida both have nice solo damage, and Raiden also triggering Hyper Bloom pushes the ceiling a bit higher. The only downside of this team is that it's full of limited 5 stars. If you want an alternative to that team, you could run this. Obviously I didn't like this one as much as the last, but it's an option if you're free to play and don't have the 5 stars I mentioned. Kirara can hold Favonius Sword to give the team energy, and then I like Dendro MC with either Sack Sword or Sapwood Blade. If you have 2 Favonius Swords, that's a solid approach too, and will mean you can run less energy recharge on everyone else. You could even go free to play with the weapons, giving Cookie Iron Sting, and Neuvillette's either Prototype Amber or the 4.1 event weapon. Bear in mind though, the event weapons are last resort. I try and use a crit weapon if you have one. With Neuvillette's self-healing, Kirara's shield and Cookie's healing, is going to be a comfy team to use. In terms of damage, you have Cookie's Hyper Blooms as well as Neuvillette's big solo damage, but Dendro MC's C6 is going to give him even more hydro damage. I'll be doing a Risley guide just like this one in a few weeks, so if you want to see it, subscribe to the channel. For now though, let's get on to the next team. Putting Electro aside, let's look at him in a freeze team. Having crit rate from the Cryo Resonance, Rosaria's passive and the Marechaussee Hunter 4-piece means you can build Neuvillette's crit damage to the moon. Personally, I didn't find the damage to be great because I think our better Cryo DPSs are on-field rather than off-field units, but it's an option if you don't currently have a freeze team. Layla was given away for free recently, and Rosaria works at C0, so is free to play friendly too. If you don't have Kazuha, you can just use Sucrose. You could even use the Animo character as a flex slot to get an extra Cryo or Hydro character in there. Kaio will work, Shenhe too, although a Cryo boost won't do a whole lot without an on-field Cryo DPS. Nahida could work if you want a fridge team, although I don't recommend it, or maybe Furina will work if she has off-field damage in a kit. Who knows? I really like this team. I don't use Kirara much and I didn't really like her in the Hyper Bloom team we looked at earlier, but she was useful here. She has nice Dendro application, a strong shield, and she's easy to build. For a build, if you don't have a HP sword, I'd give a Favonius sword and then a 2-piece combo for double HP or HP and energy recharge. Having a different way to play Bloom is nice, and it frees up some of your other Hydro options like Kokomi, Xingqiu and Yulan for your other Abyss team. I don't think it'll quite have the same amount of Bloom siege your other Bloom teams have, but I felt Neuvillette's individual damage makes up for it. And imagine a guide for a new Hydro DPS without some variant of National. As expected, there's a lot of damage in this side. It is vulnerable though because of there not being a shield, and it can be awkward to get Xiangling's burst back. I found Kazuha's grouping abilities to be more useful here than in other National teams though, because it staggers opponents a little bit, preventing them from disrupting Neuvillette, and it makes it easier to line them up to hit them all at the same time with his beam. It's a viable team, not his strongest though, and it's a little bit boring boring in my opinion. I recommend going with the other teams. There's not much else to say about National that hasn't been said 1,000 times already, so let's look at the next team. I enjoyed having another team to use Mona in. Most people that still use her put her in Morgana teams, but this is a team that's viable against most content in the game as well. With Neuvillette not scaling off attack, you don't have to give Mona Thrill and Tails either, and you can just give her Favonius Codex instead. It won't be difficult to get close to 300% energy recharge on her, and with it she'll have no issues getting a burst back every rotation. While the team's viable against most content in the game, I didn't like it as much as the other teams. It was comfy though. I did want to try out another team consisting of Neuvillette, Nahida, Fischl and Dia, but unfortunately I can't because I don't have Dia. The logic is that it'd be similar to Razor's random bullshit Go team with Razor, Nahida, Xingqiu and Bennett, but the elemental application will be different for each element, so I can't vouch for it until I've tried it. Definitely give it a go though if you have these characters. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give Neuvillette an 8.5. His downsides of it is vulnerable without a shield, his good weapon options are somewhat limited, and with him being a charge attack unit rather than a normal attack unit, there are less options for you to pair him with. These things are balanced out though by his massive individual damage and the fact that he has a unique playstyle. I found him fun to use. He was everything a field Bronya should have been in Honkai Impact, except Neuvillette is actually smooth to play rather than being clunky and awkward. He's not a must pull if you already have Hydro units, but if you did go for him, you'll have a lot of fun with him. If Furina ends up being an off-field damage dealer, then she'll pair well with him too. If you like this video, I'll be doing one for Wriothesley when he drops. Subscribe if you want to see it, and take it easy.